Thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn Apprenticeship webinar series this week of January, or this month, I should say, January 2025. Today we are delving into the legal and regulatory frameworks around registered apprenticeships. That's the whole context in which a registered apprenticeship system functions. So very important to the administration of those. I'm going to go ahead and start the slides. My name is Richard Lawrence. I am a senior director here at the Interstate Renewable Energy Council. And you should see the slide there now. Actually, there we go. Joined today by Mr. William Kraus, a partner at IWSI America, on our ACE Apprenticeship Network project. And we were to be joined today by Andy Ridgway at the Department of Labor. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it, but I do want to recognize, help put this presentation together. But he had to run off to have a new child delivered today. So we'll give him that excuse and let him be out for that. But Bill and myself will take over, mostly Bill here. So just want to start off with our ground rules and welcome again. If you do need closed captioning, that option should be available to you down at the bottom of the screen. Click that CC button there, and you should see that in this control bar to turn those on. All of the attendees are on mute. We will be handling questions through primarily the Q&A tab. The chat tab is open there, but if you can use that Q&A tab, that makes it a little easier to handle those questions, but you can also chat with each other in there in the chat if you want. And yes, we are recording this presentation. I think you did start that, right, Michelle? And we're recording the presentation. We will have that posted by early next week and share out the documents with you, so you will have them there for your reference. Do need to acknowledge that this effort is funded by primarily the U.S. Department of Labor, and we do also get some Department of Energy funding around apprenticeships. So we are under contract. The Interstate Renewable Energy Council has contract to serve as DOL's industry intermediary for the clean energy industry. So we work closely with DOL to raise awareness, and this work is supported by the government, but obviously we do not represent the government in our discussions, and any companies or anything like that we reference are not an endorsement by the government. So you can read the rest of that disclaimer there. Like I said, this is in the beginning stages of our monthly series on apprenticeships. We kicked off with an intro 101, but now we're really delving into the real heart of how apprenticeships are managed, how they operate, how do you run them, all different aspects associated with that. We went into mentorship last month. Again, going into those regulations, they really set the framework for how an apprenticeship program is structured and how it's managed. There's a real important information here we'll talk about today, and then we'll be doing this every month for the rest of at least our contract with Department of Labor here through June. Hopefully our contract will be extended beyond that, but so you can scan there. All those are up. This effort is all a part of the Apprenticeships in Clean Energy Network. IREC is the lead on this contract, but we work very closely with 9 other organizations here that operate primarily nationally, although we do delve into some states in Arkansas in particular. But lots of partners from the industry with a focus kind of on solar and storage sectors with SEIA, the Solar Energy Industries Association, and also the energy efficiency sector with the Building Performance Association. But we do broadly support clean energy companies across all technologies, all renewable energy, all energy efficiency, and even getting into some of the resources used in producing those components. tied into the workforce boards, into the educational systems, the colleges out there that are training in renewable and clean energy, and others working on increasing the diversity in the area. So lots of good resources for you all to tap into. If you are not receiving help from us yet, we'll definitely give you the link on that, but sign up for the ACE network and we can help you provide some. A lot of what we do is outreach and education like this event today, but we also can provide no cost to you technical assistance to help you implement these regulations that we're going to be talking about today. And understand the system and how to get programs up and running, how to connect with partners for that education and training that's needed, and connecting into funding as well. We actually have some limited funding available from DOL that we distribute. The link there to how to get access to that for new employers to get into the apprenticeship system, and also help connect you to those workforce boards and other local partners that might help you connect to state funding and understand other options there. So lots of resources online on our website, and all of those organizations that I mentioned there, we're here to help to work through this. So like I said, I want to thank Andy for contributing to this presentation at the Department of Labor, and Mr. Kraus at IWSI. We're going to go through, I'll turn it over to Bill now and let him walk through the rest of the agenda. Again, put your questions in the chat and we will get to those at the end of the session. All right, Bill.
Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And I'm sure we all join together and wish Andy a very successful birth of his first child. I'm Bill Kraus. I am with IWSI, which is a not-for-profit organization worldwide in scope that handles apprenticeship programs. And we are very, very fortunate to work with the ACE network and its partners. And today's topic is going to be rather interesting because we've already discussed the essentials of or the overview of apprenticeship. We've discussed the mentorship piece of it. Now we're going to go a little bit into the bones of the program. Many people they hear about the term laws, regulations, and so on. Well, we're going to give you enough to be very dangerous. We're going to let you know what the law is, what the regulations are, and we're going to go into one section in particular, which are the standards of apprenticeship. So first, we're going to begin the discussion with a nice little video, which was put together by the U.S. Department of Labor, which gives a highlight to the Fitzgerald Act, which was the legislation that began registered apprenticeship in the United States. And our speaker there will give us a little bit of details when it comes to the regulatory pieces. This discussion today will be focused primarily on 29 CFR 29, which are the regulations for the operation of an apprenticeship program. A separate webinar, we will cover 29 CFR 30, which are the equal employment opportunity regulations, outreach activities, and so on. So this is going to be focused solely on the operation of the program and things you should know. And next month is going to be really interesting because we're going to be able to talk about some of the definitions. And not a day goes by that I don't get asked what a journey worker is. So we're going to try to cover all that. And one thing that I'll give I want to give praise to the IREC staff is that right now, many of the documents you will see will be on the website. And Avery at the end will tell us where they are. So just sit back, take it in, and know that your questions are important to us and we will answer them. And then we will also have the source documents on the website. So we're going to go into a little bit of the importance of the law. We're going into a little bit about some of the regulations, how to run programs, a quick summary between Richard and myself, and very important too, And I know many people are interested in the effects and how IRA and registered apprenticeship come together. So strap in, we're going to have a good session today. Slide. And that's what I just did that. So that was the overview for Andy and so on. So let's to the video.
U.S. Department of Labor, through the Office of Apprenticeship, has the mission to expand, modernize, and diversify the National Registered Apprenticeship System to create high-quality career opportunities for American workers. This module reviews the regulations and guiding documents of which registered apprenticeship programs are grounded. Stakeholders within the registered apprenticeship system, including OA staff, state apprenticeship agency staff, employers, contractors, grantees, and apprentices, should be aware of the laws and regulations which guide the programs they are involved in. The correct application of the federal regulations is necessary as programs grow and registered apprenticeship expands into new industries. The regulations also help safeguard the welfare of the apprentice and prevent discrimination in apprenticeship programs. This module will summarize the National Apprenticeship Act and the key regulatory provisions as outlined in the Code of Federal Regulations on Apprenticeship. We will start with the National Apprenticeship Act of 1937, a federal law in the United States which regulates apprenticeship and on-the-job training programs. The National Apprenticeship Act, or NAA, was signed into law in 1937, establishing the registered apprenticeship system as we know it today. The National Apprenticeship Act is also known as the Fitzgerald Act, named after Connecticut Representative William J. Fitzgerald, who led the successful efforts to pass the law. It established apprenticeship programs that provide on-the-job training and educational opportunities for apprentices. Initially, apprenticeship was mainly in the manufacturing, construction, and utilities industries. After World War II, registered apprenticeship expanded to include programs that trained health and safety workers, firefighters, and police. The NAA enables the U.S. Department of Labor, or DOL, to issue regulations protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of apprentices. These regulations are outlined in the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 29, CFR, Part 29. It also permits regulations preventing racial, ethnic, religious, age, and gender discrimination in apprenticeship programs as outlined in 29 CFR Part 30. The language of the National Apprenticeship Act provides DOL with the ability to build apprenticeships in various ways. The Act reads, "Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that the Secretary of Labor is hereby authorized and directed to formulate and promote the furtherance of labor standards necessary to safeguard the welfare of apprentices, to extend the application of such standards by encouraging the inclusion thereof in contracts of apprenticeship, to bring together employers and labor for the formulation of programs of apprenticeship, to cooperate with state agencies engaged in the formulation and promotion of standards of apprenticeship, and to cooperate with the National Youth Administration and with the Office of Education of the Department of the Interior." As of 2022, there were more than 437,000 active apprentices participating in traditional, new, and emerging industries such as information technology, energy, and hospitality. Today, registered apprenticeship spans over 1,000 occupations, including careers in fields such as biotechnology, energy, information technology, critical supply chain, engineering, and other emerging sectors. The standards governing apprenticeship programs are located in the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations at Title 29, CFR, Part 29. The table of contents shown here lays out the various sections of Title 29 CFR Part 29, which provide the labor standards for the registration of apprenticeship programs. The standards include definitions of apprenticeship terms, the process for the registration of an apprenticeship program, standards of apprenticeship, and much more. It is recommended that all stakeholders involved with creating, registering, and managing apprenticeship programs get to know these regulations and reference the standards as necessary. These are the regulations that the Office of Apprenticeship holds programs accountable to. The Purpose and Scope section reminds the reader what the National Apprenticeship Act outlines and is helpful in defining what is contained in the rest of Title 29 CFR Part 29. The purpose of this part is to set forth labor standards to safeguard the welfare of apprentices, promote apprenticeship opportunity, and to extend the application of such standards by prescribing policies and procedures concerning the registration for certain federal purposes of acceptable apprenticeship programs with the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, Office of Apprenticeship. These labor standards, policies, and procedures cover the registration, cancellation, and deregistration of apprenticeship programs and of apprenticeship agreements, the recognition of a state agency as an authorized agency for registering apprenticeship programs for certain federal purposes, and matters relating thereto. The definitions section establishes a basic understanding of apprenticeship terminology and a common language for apprenticeship. We will not review every definition. There are over 24 included, but want to emphasize a few that have special significance. Still, it is the participant's obligation to read and understand these definitions. For a complete list of definitions, reference the regulations in Section 29.2. In addition to the purpose and scope and definition sections that we already discussed, the other sections of 29 CFR Part 29 outline additional criteria, standards, and policy for registered apprenticeship programs. We will not go into the details of each section in this lesson, but be sure to review the regulations for detailed information. Depending on your role, you will rely on them daily as a guiding resource. Regulations banning racial, ethnic, religious, age, and gender discrimination in apprenticeship programs are located at Title 29 CFR Part 30. Here are the 10 characteristics covered in the apprenticeship EEO regulations. The regulations require sponsors to refrain from discrimination on these bases in every aspect of their apprenticeship programs. So everything from recruitment to selection, promotion to hours of work, and all other terms of employment. Note that the protections extend to everyone, men as well as women, individuals without disabilities, as well as those with disabilities, and other protections. The one exception is age. The regulations specify that individuals aged 40 and older are specifically protected from age discrimination. There are multiple benefits to these protections. They provide a foundation for apprenticeship programs to set diversity and inclusion goals. They hold apprenticeship programs accountable in reaching those goals. The EEO rule provides underserved populations, such as women, people of color, and people who are differently able, access to high-skilled, high-earning career opportunities. And the EEO rule amplifies equity as an essential part of strengthening the American workforce as a whole. If you are involved with any aspect of an apprenticeship program, it would benefit you to become familiar with the National Apprenticeship Act and the regulations outlined in this module. For more information on apprenticeship regulations and guiding documents, please visit www.apprenticeship.gov or contact us at apprenticeship@dol.gov.
Great. Thank you for running that for us. Slide, please. So now you probably know as much about the regulatory structures as the majority of people who are working in the apprenticeship realm. Now, what I wanted to do was just kind of touch on the particular sections as we go through with a focus on 29 CFR 29.5, which is really the heart and soul of registered apprenticeship. As Chad mentioned, the purpose and scope is very clear. It's identified very clearly in the Fitzgerald Act. And it's interesting, the Fitzgerald Act was only 2 paragraphs long, and the regulations are numerous pages long. The definitions, something we're going to go into great detail later at our next session. I think that would be a really good one, and it's a really important one to understand because there's a whole vocabulary around registered apprenticeship, and it's important that we all speak the same language. When we talk about eligibility and procedures for the registration of programs, those are established by the Office of Apprenticeship and by the state apprenticeship agencies. So that's something that as you read through the regs, you'll understand that. When you look at the criteria for apprenticeable occupations, that's one that has come up recently because of the occupations that are associated with the solar industry. And there is a very defined definition of what the criteria is to actually grow and create new apprenticeable occupations. And we will cover that in a separate session also. So what I want to talk about is this one, which is 29 CFR 29.5, Standards of Apprenticeship. Now, if there's something you want to remember, it's the points associated with that, and we will go through that. 29.6 is performance standards. Next slide, please. And as we go through, you'll see there's different elements concerning the administration, overall administration of apprenticeship, how apprentices get registered, how programs get deregistered, reinstatement, and so on. Very, very, very bureaucratic kind of administrative functions for apprenticeship agencies. And of course, recognition of state agencies. And that's a section of the regulations that allows the U.S. Department of Labor to actually credential or bring into fold the state apprenticeship agencies. Slide. Now, this is the one I want to delve into just a little bit, 29 CFR 29.5. And it's really important, we will have the full listing available on the website. So let's just go through that really, really quickly to explain to you what the significance of this. I would say most of the questions you have are related to what's in 29.5, the standards. The standards of apprenticeship are the heart and soul of what the Office of Apprenticeship does. Exploring this in great detail will give you an idea and also a practical application of how it works. The apprenticeship program to be eligible for approval and registration by an agency, either Office of Apprenticeship, OA, or State Apprenticeship Agency, SAA, is actually based on these elements, these 23 elements. And we're going to go through them right now. These program standards must include provisions that address, one, the employment and training of the apprentice in a skilled occupation. And a skilled occupation is something that requires both the technical knowledge and requires the on-the-job learning experience. There are some jobs that are far below a skilled occupation, and they are not authorized or not approved to be included in apprenticeship. The term apprenticeship, number two, the term apprenticeship, which for an individual apprentice may be measured either through the completion of the industry standard for on-the-job learning, 2,000 hours, the attainment of the competency-based approach, or a blend. So it has to be an occupation that has at least 2,000 hours and competencies associated with it. And when we look at number 3, it'll be every program needs to have an outline of the work processes. And just about everyone on this call has dealt with the on-the-job learning and the related instruction pieces. And that's very important. That is the heart of apprenticeship. What the apprentice is to achieve, the mastery of certain skills, and so on. There's also a requirement, of course, number 4, the minimum of at least 144 hours for each year of apprenticeship. It's recommended by the department. So you want to make sure that there's sufficient education which supports the on-the-job learning. Additionally, you want to have individuals who are training folks to know teaching techniques. Learning apprenticeship and their skills is tough enough. You want to make sure the in-person doing the teaching is really, really competent and able to do that. There is a progressive schedule of wages that is included in apprenticeship. The entry wage must not be less than the minimum wage. And then you would have, there are some states that have the federal minimum wage, some have the state minimum wage, and it can't be less than that. There needs to be a periodic review and evaluation of the apprentice's performance on the job in related instruction and the maintenance of appropriate progress records. Record keeping is really important. So you want to keep good track of the on-the-job work experiences, the achievements, and also areas that need a little more effort behind it. You also want to keep track of the education to make sure that the individuals complete both elements of apprenticeship. There is something which we all have spoken about, is a ratio, and that is the amount of apprentices to journey workers. And generally in these trades that we're dealing with the renewable energy sector, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, which means 1 apprentice to 1 journey worker. Every program also needs to have a probationary period that can't be more than 25% of the overall apprenticeship term. So if it's a 1-year program, you know the answer, it's 3 months, and so on. So you want to have a period of probation, but it can't exceed a certain amount. You want to have a safe environment and safe equipment for training and supervision for the apprentice, for the on-the-job and related instruction. The minimum, you need to set a minimum qualification for each apprentice. How old? What type of educational background? What do they need? You have to pay special attention to make sure that some of your minimum qualifications aren't discriminatory. Do you really need a car? Do you really need a bachelor's degree? Do you really need certain elements? Or is it used because it may be a way to limit the amount of people who are in the program? So you want to make sure the minimum qualifications are appropriate. And remember, you cannot start an apprentice under 16 years of age. All apprentices must have a written agreement to join an apprenticeship program. And that is usually achieved through what's called the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship Form 671. That's the registration form. And for those who are part of the USDOL system, it feeds into the RAPIDS system. And that makes it so that the individual will be identified in the system, and we can use that as a way of keeping tabs of their progress. Every standard, every program has to have a provision regarding the granting of advanced standing or credit. And this is for demonstrated competency, acquired education, experience, and so on. So every employer should really take it seriously of what individuals know. And Bill's recommendation is test them, find out what they really know. Because everybody who Bill has spoken to who's a welder is an excellent welder until you have them have to weld a bead for you. So take it seriously as you go through. Every standard also has to have the provision regarding transferability. And that's really important because programs actually uh, programs are in place, but sometimes the projects end. So you need some type of provision in your standards, which will make it so the apprentice can be transferred to another program, and that will be achieved in the standard itself. You need to have the assurance that there are trained personnel and adequate supervision on the job. We talked about ratios, the 1-to-1 ratio, but at the same time, there needs to be a person who, in many cases, is called a journey worker who is qualified to be a trainer, qualified to provide the supervision. And that supervision is important for health, safety, and education. You need to have a system that has recognition for successful completion. The U.S. Department of Labor and the Office of Apprenticeship, and of course, the state apprenticeship agencies offer certificates of completion, which is recognized across the United States as a documentation for the achievement of the apprenticeship program. We also have to have standards that utilize one of the methods. If they utilize the competency or hybrid approach, they need to be ensured that the credentials are there. And if you want interim credentials, if you're 6 months into a program and person has achieved certain elements of it, you as an employer can easily acknowledge that with some type of uh, paperwork, some type of certificate. And in many cases, when individuals are funded through workforce programs, an interim credential is important to show progress. Standards also need to identify the registration agency, and there are many. There's the U.S. Department of Labor agencies, and then there's the state apprenticeship agencies. And right now, it's approximately 50-50. You need a provision for the registration cancellation of the program. So if a sponsor wants to leave the program, they can do it. You need a provision which also talks about the cancellation of an apprenticeship agreement, which means that the individual, the apprentice, is being separated from the program. If the cancellation during the probationary period will not have an adverse impact on the sponsor's completion rates. There needs to be, of course, compliance with, as they mentioned before, 29 CFR 30, which is the equal opportunity portion, which includes a pledge and so on. You need to have solid contact information. Who's running the program in the employer side? It could be a college running it for you, so we would have a contact there. So whoever the contact is needs to be identified. All records need to be maintained for at least 7 years. And that is really the points in really quick format. The standards of apprenticeship belong to the business and industry that sponsors them. It's really important. You are the owner of the apprenticeship program. We're trying to make it so that it fits within the areas of the regulatory and legal structure. We want to ensure that the developed training plan meets the standards. The goal is to ensure the sponsor meets the training obligations under the standards, and it is the adoption of these standards, voluntary, that protect the welfare of the apprentice. If the sponsor that delivers the training and certifies that, I'm sorry, it is the sponsor that delivers the training and certifies the completion of the apprentice. And their acknowledgement that the person completed the elements of the apprenticeship program will be transmitted to the registration agency, and as such, a certificate will be issued to that person. And now they have completed it and are moving to the next portion of their career. So those are the 23 points in a real nutshell. We will have them on the website. If you want to remember them, it's really important because it'll help you run a better program to achieve a very successful apprentice and to serve in a way that will help you with efficiency and knowledge on the work site. Slide. Next slide. There we go. All right, Richard.
Hey, looks like I'm back. I'm just going to do a quick. We're talking about regulations around apprenticeships. We know a lot of interest in apprenticeships in the clean energy industry is being driven by the Inflation Reduction Act. We're just going to give you a quick little intro into that, point you some resources. We've got a lot of other resources. We've done, half-day workshops just on these requirements here. So this is really high level. They go, like the regulations, you can delve down into it, and there's good resources that go through that. But the Inflation Reduction Act, largest investment in clean energy in the United States for sure, and I believe even the world, by our government investing, trillions of dollars, or hundreds of billions investing, leveraging trillions of dollars of private investment in clean energy. And most of that investment has labor provisions in requirements for apprenticeships and for paying of prevailing wage to the laborers and mechanics, at least, that are involved in the project. So real high level, any project starting now is 15% of the labor involved in the construction of that project does need to be performed by a registered apprentice. There is a participation requirement that also says, and this, that's kind of overall hours there, 15% of overall hours need to be performed by apprentices. But there's also the participation requirement that says every contractor or subcontractor who is involved in the construction, alteration, or repair of that project with those laborers and mechanics, they have to have at least one apprentice. So essentially every contractor, if they have at least 4 people, almost every contractor is involved in the construction, alteration, repair is going to have to be participating in an apprenticeship program to get those Inflation Reduction Act tax credits or deductions. There is the ratio requirement. One thing I would want to point out is it does, the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically says that you have to maintain the ratio requirement. That is an area that Bill just discussed. In an apprenticeship program, your apprenticeship program standard will have a ratio requirement. The key thing here is that through the Inflation Reduction Act, you are going to have to document that you maintained that ratio on a daily basis. So there's the IRA puts additional layers of regulation and documentation on top of the apprenticeship requirements in order to get those tax credits. So when you're managing a program just as an apprenticeship program, you don't necessarily, you are supposed to maintain those ratios, but I will say, you're not going to be audited essentially on a daily basis by the Department of Labor looking at your records. But if you're going for those Inflation Reduction Act credits, they will be auditing you on that, verifying that you can show that ratio as well. And then wages, all laborers and mechanics have to be paid prevailing wage. Key there is that apprentices can be paid, as Bill mentioned, that wage, the progression of wages is set within that apprenticeship program. So the more they advance, the more they'll get paid. But the key thing is you can pay your apprentices less than the prevailing wage for the journey worker there. One key thing really to point out is that the Inflation Reduction Act is enforced by the Department of Treasury. The Department of Labor really does not have any role in the Inflation Reduction Act other than the role that they always perform in just overseeing the apprenticeship program. So the IRA says, hey, you need to run an apprenticeship program. Okay, you got to follow Department of Labor's rules for how do you run that apprenticeship program. But all the rules around actually getting the tax credits and all the requirements and the ways you have to verify and document all of these things, those rules are defined by Treasury. And so you need to look there for those regulations, which is a really important note there. And then we'll go on. So, like I said, it's the most of the provisions within the Inflation Reduction Act do have these prevailing wage and labor provisions. So the ones we're most familiar with in the clean energy industry, we're mostly dealing with is the investment tax credit or the production tax credit, the ITC and the PTC. Those are used by solar, larger solar projects or wind projects in particular have typically used the production tax credit. Those are all moving to a technology neutral type of tax credit that's come out this year. But there's also, as you can see, there's tax deductions for energy efficient commercial buildings. So that's energy efficiency measures. There's a more complex matrix of how much you get based on square footage and how much energy reduced, things like that. There's, as you can see, other credits for producing hydrogen, for sequestering carbon dioxide, for doing alternative fuels, and that includes electric vehicle infrastructure and things like that. So lots and lots of provisions all have these same prevailing wage requirements, and essentially you can get 5 times the value of the tax credit if you do the prevailing wage, pay prevailing wage, and use the apprenticeship programs. Than if you don't. There's a base tax credit that's about 20% of what the full tax credit could be, or deduction. And there are some exemptions. I want to be clear that particularly with the PTC, ITC, all of those apply to projects that are 1 megawatt and up. So these are primarily those larger projects. Doesn't apply to the residential or smaller commercial type projects. There is the beginning construction exemption. Also, obviously this applies after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. So there's a date, starts January 29th. Any projects that started before that, these requirements, well, you may be eligible for those tax credits that were in place before then. But you wouldn't have to follow these rules. They went into effect on January 29th. There is an ability to get a good faith effort exemption if you can't find an apprenticeship program. If you reach out to one that is in the area and they're not able to serve you and provide apprentices to that project, if they're just not responsive, you can say, hey, we tried to get apprentices for this project. There's lots of guidance around that, lots of details on how to do that. We generally want to help you get the apprenticeship program up and running, so we can help you get that set up. But there are ways to get out of that through those exemptions. And also, if you do notice that you made some mistakes, you claimed the tax credits, but you maybe didn't quite meet all the requirements, you can correct things, cure your filing, so to speak, and say, you can make corrective payments to those who were underpaid and with interest, and then there are some penalties as well to the IRS. So you can still get those credits even if you kind of messed up. They increase, the penalties increase significantly if they find that it was sort of willful disregard of the provisions. But if it was a kind of honest mistake and you say, oh, hey, we didn't make the ratios this day or things like that, you can fix those. You can pay some penalties and keep the full tax credits for the whole project. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on the money for the whole project. So just want to quickly touch on the Inflation Reduction Act. Again, lots more resources on that on the Department of Labor's website, apprenticeships.gov. And then also on the Department of Treasury site, there's a lot of information on Solar Energy International, SEI, SEIA, Solar Energy Industries Association. They've got a lot of resources there as well with that. And I'll turn it back over to Bill.
Okay, thank you. When it comes to technical assistance, and again, this is Andy's slide, what he's trying to show here is that the states that are in dark blue are state apprenticeship agencies, and the ones in light blue are the Office of Apprenticeship. In addition to the individuals who are identified in this map, What you will also know is that IREC and the ACE network is here to be your guide through the apprenticeship system. Um, Many of us have done this for a number of years, and we know ways of getting things achieved. We want to make sure that we're able to keep individuals in the right realm and make sure that the programs are in compliance, are able to meet the requirements of the IRA, and also to help meet the requirements and to ensure that the occupations that are identified are appropriate for Davis-Bacon projects. As Richard mentioned, that is a Department of Labor activity. They enforce it through the wage and hour section. But if you if you have an individual working on a work site and he or she is in the baker apprenticeship program, there's a really 100% chance that wage and hour is going to say they're not a baker, they're an electrician. So you're going to have to pay the full wage on that electrician. So just know that the IREC staff, the ACE network staff, and for those in the solar individuals in SIA are available to you. We are no cost to you. We will help you through the system. And as Richard mentioned previously, there is some incentive dollars that we can help you with, and it'll help kick off some of the program costs. And if you're having a difficult time finding a partner, give us a call. We'll be glad to help you with that. Slide. Now, Richard might have gone into this a little bit, but there's different ways. There are actually different ways to get into a registered apprenticeship program. Of course, you can join an existing program. So if Atlanta Community College already has a program, you can go and become a participating employer with them. If a trade union has an existing program, you can go and partner with them. If the IEC has a program or ABC has a program, you can partner with them. You can also create your own program, and because these are fundamentally construction occupations, we can help you develop a national guideline program, which you can use in states across the nation. And that'll help speed the process of registration, since the Appendix A, which is the work process, and the work process contains both the on-the-job learning component and the related instruction, it'll help the process. If you're going to an Office of Apprenticeship state with a set of guidelines, you're going to be in good shape to have this thing move quickly. And we will be happy to help set you up for national guideline programs. And we'll also be very helpful when it comes to working with individual states. Uh, the state apprenticeship agencies do have rules and regulations that they have to follow, and they do have funding streams that they actually send forward to you. But in some cases, you need to re-register with that state. In some cases, you need to um, meet certain requirements of that state. And we have a team of folks who can gladly help you identify those issues and help resolve them. Slide. Now, there are apprenticeship training representatives from both the Office of Apprenticeship and the state apprenticeship agencies. These individuals are trained. They know the different apprenticeship models, they understand the territory, and they're very good at helping develop programs. We will be very happy to introduce you to them. We'll be very happy to do the upfront work and submit it to them on your behalf. So get to know the apprenticeship training representatives. If you go to apprenticeship.gov and they're all listed there, feel free to call them. If you have an issue with an individual state, give them a call. Or if you want to, give us a call, and we'll be able to help make this, help make the bridge and help lead you to success. Slide. these are some resources that my good friend Mr. Ridgway gave us. And you can see that this is based on the apprenticeship.gov website, and they do have the state offices that'll help you if you want to learn more about registered apprenticeship and so on. You see these links, and that'll help you. However, I will say, and I'm sure Richard or Avery is going to mention at the end, you can really cut this shorter and come to us, and we will help connect you to exactly where you need to go. So this will be something you can use, but we will also have resources available to you, and that'll include both uh, the IREC website, the ACE network, and the Green Jobs Network websites. And there's a tremendous amount of resources there that will help you get through the program. And again, if you have a phone or if you have an email, give us a call, send us a note, and we'll be glad to help you. Slide. Everybody's favorite slide. We've had questions actually in the chat and also in the Q&A. So please, if you have anything you want to add or any questions you may have, put them in there, but either in the chat or in the Q&A. And I would say, and if you want to raise your hand and ask some questions, feel free.
And we do
Slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
have,
Here's a question.
you'd also asked for a link to the 23 points that you covered. Is that
I've given Avery the document, and he's going to put it on our website.
great? Okay. And, let me think we.
I see Eric has a call.
Are you able to type that question into the chat or the Q&A box, Eric Ellerby? Potentially turn on their mic, I think. I can find. We do have, I'll get to the one other question. I think there was a question about reconciling, this is from Michael Kraus.
Yeah.
Reconciling the one apprentice for every 4 laborers with a 1-to-1 ratio. We're a little confused about the question, but I believe what you're referencing of the 1 apprentice to 4 laborers. Believe that may be a reference to what I said was the participation requirement in the Inflation Reduction Act. What that participation requirement just says is that every contractor has to have at least 1 apprentice. Every contractor with 4 or more employees has to have at least 1 apprentice. So they could have 50 and still only they need that 1 apprentice to meet that participation requirement. And then you have so the ratio requirement of the apprenticeship program is different. You don't reconcile those two things. The ratios of the apprenticeship program that defines for each apprentice how many journey workers do you then need. So if you had 50 employees and you only had 1 apprentice, well, you now go to that apprenticeship standard and say, okay, for that 1 apprentice, how many of my other 49 do I actually have to have journey workers supervising it? And typically it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Sometimes it's higher than that. Sometimes you may need 2, 3, even 4 journey workers for each apprentice that you have. Depends on the occupation, depends on the standard. For others, it's lower. You could have multiple apprentices for each journey worker. But usually in the construction trades, it's rare to see less than a 1-to-1. So those are kind of different provisions, yeah.
And that's where state law comes in too. There are some states that actually have it in law of what the ratio is going to be, and there are some states, certain occupations, correct. And so that's why it's while we're talking big, it's very, very defined at a local level, and we'd be happy to help you with every one of those local issues that come up.
Okay, and Eric's question was, how long does it take to get approved? Bill?
Depends. How's that for an answer, Eric? I would say the more defined and the more complete your submission is, the faster it would go. Now, Richard and myself have a way of using our connections to try to make things move quickly, but sometimes the staffs just it takes some time because they have protocols they need to follow. If you need a program tomorrow, forget it. But I would say generally give yourself at least a month to get a program approved. So give it a month. Each state is individual, of course. Some states have you have to go in front of a council. Some states you have to do additional paperwork. And again, I hate to say it, but it all depends. And we'll be glad to answer if you have particular questions on individual states. I think the answer for like California may be different than the answer for Mississippi. So it just work with us and we'll be happy to answer your questions, Eric, on a one-on-one.
Great. Yeah, and it does vary. Some states get through it quicker. It can depend on, how well your standard's certainly written from the beginning. So if you get, help in the beginning, make sure you work with somebody like our team. We can make sure that when you submit it, it's going to be pretty well put together. So question was about a step-by-step checklist or in quotes, some kind of guide resource that we can share with potential sponsors of registered programs. Lots of info out there, but is there a good digestible resource? I did put a link to what we've created is a toolkit for clean energy employers. It walks through a lot of these standards that Bill talked about, all these sections, and just sort of gives you that overview of what needs to go into that standard. Talks about the ratios. I mean, starts off with the occupation. That's what drives it all, is what are you actually trying to train somebody? What career path are they learning? And all these other sections that we talked about, you can get an intro to that on our guide, our toolkit. I put a link to that. And of course, the resources that the Department of Labor has, apprenticeship.gov is really, your one-stop shop. There is a good, the RA Academy is a great, that video that we showed was from that academy. There's a lot of short little clips like that. There is a toolkit or a guide that DOL has as well that we give to everybody we work with, because that really walks through all those steps as well. Bill, anything else on that?
Yeah, there is an actual checklist, and I'll get a copy of it and give it to Avery and Michelle, and we'll put it on our website. It's a good way, and if you really want to kind of play in that arena, go to the standards builder, which is part of the apprenticeship.gov website, and you can actually see the different sections as you go through them, and that'll help you. So either way, it'll be on our website in a day or so. In addition, standards builder is a way to do it, or give us a call. We'll be glad to help you.
Okay, and then and is there approximate cost to establish a program? That's a good question. So there is no cost to actually register with the Department of Labor. There's no cost to submit your apprentices. When they come online, you can register them. There's the certificate that they get when they complete it at the end. That is all. All of those are no cost for actually managing the system. Obviously, there are going to be costs involved in your time in building a program and in managing a program. Bill, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, I am. There are some companies out there that are actually in the business of trying to help you do it, and they do charge a fee. There are our team will charge you nothing, and we'll have a continuous technical assistance. The state and the state agencies and the federal government will not charge you a fee to do this. So there's no charge on our part. We are fortunate to have USDOL funding, which actually supports us and will support you. There are companies out there that say they will take care of you and help you and do all that good stuff, and they will charge you a fee. So, and when you deal with costs, there may be some costs associated with the educational piece. So if an individual is going to a community college or going to NCCER or one of the other programs, there may be some costs associated with that. But generally, there are no costs associated with the registration function.
Yeah, just your staff time in
Yep.
that. Otherwise, there are no fees or costs of, through
Somebody
the
said, yeah, somebody said the biggest cost is having to work with me. So I don't know if that's true.
All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I think we will wrap it up there. Of course, you can reach out to us for additional assistance and can help you answer any of those questions, can help you, review your standards, give you some templates, some guides to start from, and help you with any of these aspects that we talked about today. Look forward to seeing you again next month at our, I think actually, do I have a slide on that?
We have a slide. Yes, we do.
Go. Next month's webinar. There we go. Wrap up on this. We're going to be delving into those terms a little more and understanding those definitions. You ask, what's a journey worker, et cetera, et cetera. We'll go into that. And so go ahead and scan that code. And thank you for your time. And let us know if we can help you out. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.